Hi, we're gonna finish up this project, so you should have three characters that are animating when you hit play. We can't see them in the game window because with virtual cameras, they're kind of all fighting for priority. And I think the one I made last is winning. So instead of showing you the priority of cameras, we can do it a different way. We're actually going to create a timeline where we'll say, the runner camera play for this amount, then the boxer camera play for this amount, then the lifter camera play for this amount. So it's kind of cool that you can use a timeline to decide when shots from certain cameras happen. So I'm going to stop here. In order to create a timeline, you need to have some place to store it. And so in keeping with the practice of keeping stuff organized, I'm going to right click and create an empty game object. And then I'm going to click it once so I can name it. And I will name it timeline. And then when we go to window, underneath sequencing, we can open the timeline window. When we do that, the timeline window says if you want to create a timeline, select a game object, which is what we created this empty one for, which is why I had to do it first. Okay, so we are going to create a director component and a timeline asset. So we're going to click create. And we're just going to leave it in this asset spot, or I can put it into characters, but I'm just going to keep it in the asset spot. So I click save and we get a timeline and it puts itself in the top window. Unfortunately, we can't make that smaller, but we can shift stuff around if you want more room. It assumes we want to have a timeline that puts our different animations here, but we don't. So we're actually going to remove this one. We'll play with it later in a different assignment. So for now, let's right click on this animator timeline and delete it. We're going to add a Cine Machine timeline by clicking this add and adding a Cine Machine track. And so what it needs to know is what the Cine Machine brain is. And I don't know if you remember this, but when we set up Cine Machine, the main camera is the one that has the brain. You can see the Cine Machine brain. So let me get back to that timeline. So I have to, when I clicked a different object in the hierarchy, I'm now seeing the inspector for that object, and it looks like my timeline disappeared, but it didn't. It's just because I left the game object that has my timeline. And I left it so you could remember that the main camera has our brain and we got to plug it over here. So now basically we will be able to drag our virtual cameras into this timeline. So right now it's showing us frames per second. If we click this little gear right there, it's very small. Click that gear and you can switch it to seconds. And so check this out. I'm going to move the runner in first. And when I plop it down, clips default to 5 seconds. I think I'm going to shorten that down to 1. So if you've used video editing software, you're going to see a lot of similarities. So I can push that down to 1. If I want to be super precise, I can just type in here and do 4. Whoops. Huh. Oh, there we go. Duration is 4. So that means it's going to show my runner straight off. In fact, let me put these back to game and scene. And it's showing this part from when we first set up the virtual camera, and that is because I clicked on it. So click off of it, and then that feature goes away. And you can see it's going to do that. Let me go back to scene and click play. And as soon as it starts playing, you're not going to see, you see that guy right away. And then when it ends, it'll just go back to the default view. But let's go back to the timeline. And we could go ahead and bring in the lifter and push her over And we're going to set her duration for 4 as well. And we will also bring in the boxer, set that duration for 4, push it over next to our first camera. So all 3 pieces are in. I'm going to click here so none of them are selected, because when they're selected, the image we were using when we first set up this camera shows up, and that's not desirable. So just click down here, nothing selected. Go ahead and click play, and you will see when it plays, we have our first dude running. She already got up, so I probably want to put her first, because remember, she's not looped. Our other 2 are looped. And then it just goes back to the default view of that camera. So since the lifter animates first and only once, I'm going to shift her to the beginning. And actually, you can't just shift her. By the way, if you need more room, you can use your scroll wheel. It zooms in and out. I'm going to push her over here so that I can push this guy to the side. And I can put her first. And I'll show you something else in a second, but go ahead and click play. And we'll see her stand up. And she just stands there for 4 seconds. And then we get over to the runner dude. And then we get over to the boxing person. And they loop as they did. And then the video stops. So we've come a long way just to get that done. So one more thing I can show you. I don't know if you noticed this before, but once you place these, if you end up stretching one over the other and there's an overlap, see this overlap? That actually makes a blend in your movie, so it's a transition. So I'll play again so you can see those transitions. I'm not sure transitions are meant for this little project. Let's see how it looks. Oh yeah, and I left one of them highlighted, so no, that's not bad. Actually, I kind of like that. And if you want to stretch each of these out more and make a longer duration and a longer crossover, you can. But that's how you do the Cine Machine. It's a quick and easy timeline. There's a lot more we can do with it, but for now, this was the goal of the first assignment. So I hope it goes well for you. Rewind this video as necessary to help yourself. And congratulations and good job.